What is up, Not So Pro Football Talk? This is Vince the Prince back again with another video here. Week 15 now. So it is fantasy, a playoff week for majority of you guys. But here we're going to go over the power rankings. So again, some exciting games this past week to go ahead and, as we've added in the past week, playoff expectations. What is the percentage of your team actually making the playoffs going into week 15? Well, here you're about to find out. So, of course, as we always do, we're going to have the offensive grading and defensive grading that I've been reading over and over. I'll bring it up on the screen so you can read it. Alrighty. So, again, I just want to bring in the playoff aspect that I have not written on there. Basically, playoff seeding and the possibility of you making the playoffs, whether it is getting a bye week for your team, winning your division and making it into those top four spots for each division, for each conference side, or if it's you making a wild card spot. So again, some teams have already locked in. Some teams are still fighting for their division, like the NFC West for the Seahawks over here, and the 49ers and the Rams and the Cardinals, blah, 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 blah. Everybody basically is fighting for their shot at the playoffs if they haven't already locked in. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and kind of go quickly through these teams who don't have any playoff chances. I'll read who they're coming up against, what that means for the other team, all that good stuff. But I'm going to really spend some more time on the teams that actually have a playoff chance. So here we go. At number 32, I have the New York Giants. And of course, they took the L to the New Orleans Saints, 11-14. This week, they're going to go ahead and go against the Ravens. So it's going to be a tough matchup. I don't think they'll win this sitting at 2-11, while the Baltimore Ravens are 8-5, who are desperately in need of a win so they can keep their playoff chances alive. But as we all know, the New York Giants have 0% chance to make this. They had less than 1% chance last week, but now it is flat 0. So they have been eliminated wholeheartedly. So here they are at 32 again. Probably stay there next week. Then we have at 31, the Las Vegas Raiders. I had the opportunity to bring them down to 32, but I just think the Giants are a worse team at this point in time. The Las Vegas Raiders went ahead and lost as well, 13-28 against Tampa Bay. Nothing really out of the ordinary there. We expected the Raiders to lose. Right now, really, they only have Brock Bowers, who's playing well, and a few other guys that have come up in their respective roles to get this team, I guess, a little bit going, but not really. Next week, they're going to go up against the Atlanta Falcons, who are sitting at 6-7 and are also fighting for a playoff spot to win their division somehow, sitting at 6-7, below 500. But Las Vegas Raiders, 2-11, they have 0% chance. Again, like the New York Giants had less than 1% chance last week, but their shots to win it or go to the playoffs now are just dead. So there you go. At number 30, I'm going to have the Tennessee Titans. And of course, this past week, they went ahead and took the loss as well to the Jacksonville Jaguars, 6-10. This one was a horrible game, honestly. No offense. I guess you can call it good defense, or it's just pretty bad offense. But Tennessee Titans, it is what it is. Again, they're fighting for a good draft pick this year. Hopefully, it can actually help them. But next week they have the Cincinnati Bengals, who again are trying their best to make the playoffs somehow, but I don't think it's going to be possible at all. Again, Tennessee has a 0% chance of making the playoffs as well. It's going to be like that for the rest of these bottom teams, almost all of them. But right now the Titans are eliminated as well, and really have no chance of making it in the future. Sitting here at 29, I am going to have the Jacksonville Jaguars, who also, for the first time out of all these teams, took a dub. And it was the Tennessee Titans that I just talked about. They won 10-6. It was not a very good game, in my opinion, as I said last week. Next week, they are going to play the Jets, who are another horrible team, sitting at 3-10, just like the Jaguars. The Jags have 0% chance of actually making it to the playoffs now. No chance to win the division whatsoever. So really, they are also fighting for a good pick in this next draft. We'll see what happens, but Jaguars right now just have no real need to win. And ding, 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 you guessed it. I'm going to talk about the New York Jets sitting here at number 28. Of course, last week took the L. It looked like one of their better games, I guess you could say. A few of their guys like Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson, as well as, no, not Brees Hall. Braylon Allen actually had a decent game. So, again, the New York Jets have some pieces that they can continue to build around, but right now their playoff chances are at a big fat 0, sitting at 3-10. So again, that's why they're down here. No chance to really make the playoffs. Nothing really riding for the season. We'll see what they end up doing next season, but in my opinion, I think they need to cut the old guys. Here we go. At 27, I'm going to have the New England Patriots, who were on a bye this week. So again, they moved down one spot, but again, it's because they couldn't really fight to move up. Just some teams above them, did better in my opinion. This week, they're going to go ahead and play the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals are actually fighting for a playoff spot there in the NFC West division. They just took the L to the Seahawks, but the New England Patriots are sitting at 3-10 themselves. So at this point in time, they also are at 0% chance. Last week they had less than 1% chance. So again, very skeptical of them making it, as I said in the last video. But a lot of these teams all sitting at 3-10 or worse. Obviously, you'd expect not to have any chance at all. Now, sitting at 26, I have the New Orleans Saints, who actually got a dub this past week against the Giants, 14-11. I mean, it was a decent win, I guess you could say. Really, they went through a lot of injuries there. So, again, if you guys haven't heard the news, Ben DiNucci is getting signed for the Saints, and we'll see. Maybe he'll start. Again, I really liked DiNucci when he was with the Cowboys, and we saw him in Hard Knocks and everything like that. Awesome. So again, hopefully this guy gets a chance. Hopefully he can stick on this team. And the New Orleans Saints play Washington, so it's going to be a tough one for him if he is ending up being the starter, or at least playing part of the game because of horrible quarterback play that they got with Hayner, I think is his name. But it's going to be a tough game. So the Saints at this time are sitting at 5-8. They actually have a very, very small chance of making the playoffs, just like how everybody last week had less than 1% chance. They have a less than 1% chance to actually make the playoffs and get this, guys, actually win their division. Pretty crazy. Really, them winning their division is the only way that they can make this because their division is just horrible. Again, they sit at 5-8. The Bucks, who have the tiebreaker against them, are sitting at 7-6. So only basically 3 games away. So the Saints really have to win out these next 4 weeks or so, and I don't think that's going to happen. So Saints, playoff chances are probably down the toilet. Here, sitting at 25, I'm going to have the Dallas Cowboys again this past week. Lost in a tough game to the Cincinnati Bengals, 20-27. Did not expect the Cowboys to actually have a decent game. I thought the Bengals were going to run away with this one, but I was thoroughly proved wrong. So it actually was a good game that we watched on Monday Night Football, me and Reed. And maybe this one will be a good one as well. Dallas going against Carolina. Carolina sits at 3-10. I mean, I think this one's could be actually good with the way that the Dallas Cowboys have been playing, with the way that the Panthers have been playing. They both look like different squads after some turmoil throughout the season. But right now, the Cowboys, they have a less than 1% chance of making the playoffs. No chance to win their division, so it is outright there. Give a check mark to the Eagles as they basically have won this division outright pretty much, 100% locked after last week's win. But yeah, less than 1% chance. It really is not anything that we didn't expect. But get this, guys. For all you skeptic guys out there, if you're a Cowboys fan and that fits with your personality, there's a less than 1% chance for the Cowboys to make it to the Super Bowl. Yeah, you heard that right. Less than 1% chance to make the playoffs, and probably an even less 1% chance to make the Super Bowl. So just some fun facts for you guys out there if you do have the sliver of hope. Alrighty, sitting here at 24, I'm going to have the Indianapolis Colts. They had a bye week this past week, so a lot of rookie teams having a bye week is very odd. Week 14 was basically half of the teams on bye week were all rookie quarterbacks. Pretty good for them to play majority of the season. Good thing majority of them stayed healthy the entire time, maybe a few games out here and there. But next week, they are going to go up against the Denver Broncos. So it will be another rookie matchup there with Bo Nix and Anthony Richardson. I'm looking forward to this one. It's at 325. So I think I'm going to have this one on my TV just to see what the future is like with these teams facing up against each other. Will we have rivalries? Hopefully. That's basically what you look for in the league there if you're not watching your team at that point in time, of course. But should be a good one. I really like the matchup going here. And speaking of playoff chances, the Colts actually have a decent chance to make it, and that's very exciting. They have a 30% chance of making this, only a 5% chance of winning the division over the Texans, who they are about 3 games behind just because of that tiebreaker situation. But there is a good chance they make it in the AFC in a wild card spot. So again, 30% chance. Pretty awesome. So I'm looking forward to that. Rooting for you, Colts. Alrighty, here at 23, I am going to have none other than the Atlanta Falcons, who have just been dropping tremendously in these past few weeks for me. This past week, they took the L to Minnesota. It was an expected loss, but I did not expect them to lose this bad. 21-42, not what you're looking for if you're an Arizona Cardinals fan. And if you expected them to win the division, not me, I did not. Definitely wanted Tampa Bay to win. But moving down to 6-7, the Atlanta Falcons have an easier matchup that can hopefully keep their hopes alive for the playoffs. They're going against the Las Vegas Raiders, who are sitting at 2-11 and are really injured at this point in time. They just lost their quarterback, Aiden O'Connell. Happens, injuries happen all the time. But right now, Atlanta should be winning this game, hopefully. Hopefully, at least for fantasy, Bowers will play well, but we'll see with the quarterback situation there. Right now, the Atlanta Falcons have a decent chance as well. 34% chance to make the playoffs, a 32% chance still to win the division. So the divisional talks of winning there is not over yet. They would just need the Bucs to lose more than the Falcons at this point in time. So it's still alive, but at this point in time, I still believe that the Falcons will probably keep plummeting down in this division. They're just not playing good football. They're not cohesive at all, and they really just really threw it down the toilet there. Last week was a 96% chance to make the playoffs, and now take that down 60 points, 62 to be exact, down to 34. It's not looking good, guys. Here we go. We'll stay in the division here. No, it's not the Bucs. It's the Carolina Panthers. Again, they had the L. It looked like it was going to be a good win for them, but they just couldn't get it at the end. Philadelphia was their opponent, losing 16-22. I expected it to be close, but I did not expect it to be this close. I believe Philadelphia was favored by 12 points. Thought it was going to be maybe 10, but if you told me it was going to be 6, less than a touchdown, that the Carolina Panthers could actually win close to the end of the game, I would have been like, wow, Carolina is actually doing pretty good going into this later part of the season. Yeah, they're not getting wins every single game, but the momentum is there. It is great to see for Bryce Young actually getting his shot here. But Bryce Young is going to face the Dallas Cowboys next week. I think this is a game he could win in Carolina. Should be interesting. I would want to watch this one at 12 o'clock, but we'll go ahead and see if I can make it. There's going to be a lot of games going on then, so of course I'm going to be on Red Zone, and we'll see what game I have on at that point in time. But for now, Carolina has a less than 1% chance to actually win the division and make it to the playoffs. It's a little bit less than the Saints, and I think by the end of this week, if they take the L here, it should be an absolute 0. But again, still rooting for you, Carolina Panthers. If there's any team that has a less than 1% chance that I would want to make it to the playoffs, it would be Bryce Young and the Panthers. But for now, looks like those shots are down the drain. And really, they're also just fighting for a good draft pick to help out that offense, hopefully the offensive line. Here at 21, I'm going to have the worst NFC North team, the Chicago Bears. They were doing pretty good in the beginning of the season, but now it's just really, really bad. Sitting at 4-9, just took the L here to San Francisco by a plethora of points, 13-38. My gosh, a whole 25 points, I believe. Yeah. So 4 scores, all that stuff, 4 scores 30 years ago, 100 years ago. The Bears were actually good, but now they're not. And it's been a trend. So sitting at 4-9, they have a less than 1% chance to make it. And next week, it's probably not going to be any better. or this week, my bad. Monday Night Football, basically next week. Chicago will go against the Minnesota Vikings. Catch Reed and I live, most likely, for this game. I think Minnesota should take this one. They are fighting for that spot up there in the playoffs with the first wild card spot, or maybe even if they could do it, beating the Detroit Lions out for this division. It would be crazy to see that because Detroit right now is on a roll. But Minnesota also is on a roll too, getting a lot of wins consistently, even though it's not by a lot of points, still consistently winning. So I think they'll win this game for sure against the Chicago Bears. But Chicago right now is just nothing really to talk about. Again, at this point in time, a less than 1% chance to make the playoffs. I think they're done. Zip. Nothing more for Caleb Williams to do except continue to grow and hopefully, lose some of those older guys on this team and draft and get younger because that's the way to go. You have to get better somehow, and I think through the draft is the best way to do it. Alrighty, sitting here at 20, I'm going to have the Houston Texans. Again, sitting at the top of the division, had a bye week. So, again, another young quarterback, not a rookie, but another young quarterback on the bye week in week 14. They have a 96% chance of winning this division, 95% chance of making the playoffs. Next week, they go against Miami. It's at home. I think this is going to be a really good game since Miami has been putting up a lot of points. And Houston has seemed a little bit on teeter-tottering, on their rocker there. So again, sitting at 8-5, it's not the best that they could have probably done. There's a few more games that I think they should have won, and they would have a better record, of course, and possibly would have clinched the division already. But they have a 4% chance of making the Super Bowl. So that's the highest we've seen so far. There is a lot higher, of course, with some other teams like the Chiefs, the Lions, etc., etc. But right now, the Texans look like a decent team. But I think once they get to the playoffs, they're going to get exposed. Reed will probably say that as well once we talk about them maybe on a Monday, Overreaction Monday. But for now, the Texans just don't look good, and I don't think it's going to get any better. Sitting at 19 here, I have the Cincinnati Bengals. They right now only have a 2% chance of making the playoffs, a 0% chance of winning this division, as the Steelers are 5 games, most likely 6 games ahead of them. But at this point in time, I really don't expect the Bengals to really be playing out of their minds for wins. But this one next week could possibly be that. Tennessee is their next opponent, sitting at 3-10. Cincinnati 5-8. I think this is their best shot to get a good win and to really boost up Jamar Chase's numbers. Hopefully even T. Higgins, because I got him in fantasy and I know Reed does too. But at this point in time, I really just don't expect too much from the Bengals. Last week, 39% of making the playoffs, but with that loss, actually even with a win and a whole bunch of other teams actually winning ahead of them, like the Steelers, just plummeted their chances. So Cincinnati, it's okay. Next season is there. You still got all your guys, majority. And I still think in the draft you will continue to get better and younger. And that's exactly what they need, especially on the defense. Sitting at 18, we'll keep it in the division. I have actually the Cleveland Browns over the Bengals. Just because of this aspect here, I think they have a better overall team. They took the L this past week, but it was against Pittsburgh. They've split their division wins with Pittsburgh, which is pretty impressive when their actual records are flipped, sitting at 3-10, and the Steelers sitting at 10-3. So pretty cool to see that, but 0% chance of making the playoffs. Last week it was 1%. Now it's cut dry from the Steelers, giving them the L. But Cleveland Browns really have come a long way. Deshaun Watson really ruined this team, and I think Jameis has really brought some revitalized energy back into it. So if there's any team next year that I'm rooting for to not start their heavily paid quarterback, it's the Browns, because I hope we can see a little bit more of Jameis Winston. But we'll see. Now here at 17, I'm going to have the Miami Dolphins. This past week, they got the dub against the Jets, which is what I like to see. But 32-26, they did not cover against that 7-point spread. That's okay, though. It was one of my 3 pick'ems that I got wrong out of the 13. So it went 10-3 in my pick'ems this week. Just a little shout out for myself there. But the Dolphins only have a 16% chance of making the playoffs. It went up 3%. No chance to win the division as the Bills have clinched that already. But Miami as the second best team here looks pretty good. Of course, way above the Jets. I think with this one here, they can go ahead and outright say that they are the better team and they will finish second in the division. But next week, they're going to have a tough matchup against Houston. It is in Houston. Hopefully, Tyreek goes off for the fantasy people that have him, Waddle as well, A Chain, all that good stuff. If you have Tua like me in one league, you would want Tua to play well. But I think this one's going to be a tough one. So I don't know if Miami will win this, but in my opinion, right now, they're the better team compared to Houston. So I think it's a possibility. But we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully, it's just a good game. Now, sitting at 16, I'm going to have the Arizona Cardinals. They're sitting at 6-7 at this point in time. Took the L 18-30 against the Seattle Seahawks. Whoop whoop. Just pushes us up more in the division there and pushes them down. So that's exactly what I like to see when we have the tiebreaker over them, going 2-0 this year against the Arizona Cardinals. My favorite. But next week they have the New England Patriots sitting at 3-10. Patriots coming off a bye. This might be bad for the Arizona Cardinals, and I think they could possibly even lose this game. But Arizona is the better team at this point in time. So again, I could be eating my words for sure, and maybe I'm just being a little bit bad and saying that they'll lose, so that way their playoff chances just dwindle even more. But last week, 42% chance of making the playoffs. This week, only 5%. That is preposterous. That's crazy. But again, it's because they lost that divisional chance to win against us because they are basically 3 games behind us now with only 4 weeks left to go. So really, their winning the division is their only route into the playoffs, as their record is pretty bad. So a lot of NFC teams above them are most likely going to take those wild cards, especially with the remaining schedule that the Cardinals have. It's going to be tough for them to win out all 4 games. So that's where that 5% chance comes in. But as of right now, Arizona does not look like they will make the playoffs. Next at 15, I have the LA Chargers. This one is a pretty interesting one. They lost again to the Kansas City Chiefs, but again, only by a few points, 17-19. I really think the Chargers are a really good sleeper team. If they were to make the playoffs, I'd be pretty scared to match up against them in the AFC because right now their defense is playing pretty dang good. Offense is getting better and better, even with injuries there all season long. But next week they'll play against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are 1 game behind them basically, but on the other side of another conference. So the LA Chargers 8-5, Tampa Bay 7-6. This should be a good one on paper. I'm looking forward to this one actually at 325. I might have the split screen there, but we'll have to wait and see. I think it's going to be pretty interesting to see where their playoff chances go from here if they win, because right now it's gone up 6% from last week. 80% in week 14, 86% now. But there's really 0% chance of them winning this division. They would have to win out, and the Chiefs would have to lose out, which is preposterous to say. They even have the Chiefs at, above 99%, but not at that full 100 because they haven't clinched yet, basically. But the Chargers, I think they'll still make the playoffs as long as they can outpace the Broncos. So right now, 86% chance versus the 72% chance for the Broncos. There is a world where both of them make it, but I think whoever wins out that second position in this division will for sure be the only one there because it's going to be tough for both of them to make it with the way the AFC is going. Sitting at 14, I'm going to have the San Francisco 49ers. They got the dub this week, a big one that they really needed to get their momentum back against Chicago. 38-13, a really good, solid win for them. I definitely doubted them in this game, thinking that they might not have that great of a game. But again, maybe that's just me being biased since I do want the Seahawks to win the division here and go to the playoffs. Even if we get first rounded, it's just awesome to win the division and have those bragging rights for a little while. But only a 4% chance to make the playoffs, a actual 3%, sitting at the bottom right now at 6-7, tied with the Cardinals to win the division. So that is very interesting to see. This next week, they're going to go against another divisional rival in the LA Rams. There's a lot in me that actually hopes that San Francisco beats the LA Rams because the LA Rams are creeping on us. So this one's going to be tonight, Thursday night. It's going to be a good one. I know Reed will be there watching this game. I might pop in, possibly. We'll see. But probably not because I also have something to attend to. But for sure, I will be watching this one on the way home. And when I get home, should be a good one because for the first time, I actually want San Francisco to win. So that way, it's a little bit easier for us to win the division, even if we take the L this week, too, against the Packers. But we'll talk about that later. And now is later because here at 13, I have the Seattle Seahawks. Look at that. It just works out in that way for me. But yeah, I actually have the Seahawks moving sideways instead of up after this win. Even though they are leading the division, I still think we are not a top 10 team. We have a lot to clean up on special teams, on offense as well, even though we put up a good amount of points this week. 30-18 against the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, I feel like there's always something to clean up, especially when you're only at 8-5. Yes, 8-5 is a lot higher than everybody expected, but it is about where I expected us to land at. Miraculously, there's a possibility we actually go 10-7 to end the season. I don't think we'll win out the rest of these games. I'd be very, very impressed if we did, and maybe I would think we have a better chance in the playoffs if that happens. But this next week, like I said earlier, we are taking on the Packers. The only good thing here is that it is at home, but our home record is not anything to rave about. We've definitely lost a good amount of games, and on Sunday night, I think this should be a great one to watch. Hopefully, we can keep up with the Green Bay Packers, and hopefully, we just go up another game on a few of our rivals there in the NFC West. We'll have to wait and see, but definitely you will see me and Reed giving each other a little bit of slack here and there on Monday Night Football after whoever wins here. Here at number 12, I'm going to have the LA Rams, actually. Yes, I do think they are a better team than us at this point in time. Maybe not defensively, but offensively, they are clicking. They just took down the number one team in the league, the Bills, in my opinion, from last week, 44-42. So again, they move up to 7-6. Next week, again, as I said earlier, they are going to play the San Francisco 49ers. I hope they lose this game tonight. It's just better for the Seahawks if they lose this game. But I could very well see this being a brawl the entire way. Both offenses looked like they were clicking last week. And I hope that's how it turns out too, because it's nothing better to see than an NFC West brawl. It's going to be fun to watch, especially tonight. So prime time, love to see it. But right now, before we end here, the Rams have a 35% chance of winning the division and a 36% chance of making it to the playoffs. I don't know if I said the Seahawks chances, but I'll say them anyway. 60% chance to win, get into the playoffs, and 58% chance to win the division. So we are favored there above the Rams, who are just below us. Should be fun to watch this division, as I've kept saying and saying and saying. Hopefully you guys think so too. Sitting at 11, I'm going to have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Yes, they are only sitting at 7-6, but their chances to make the playoffs are astronomical compared to everybody else in the division. More than double. The Bucs have a 72% chance of making the playoffs, 68% chance of winning the division, more than double than the Falcons there. They took the dub here against Las Vegas, and that's why I had them moving sideways as well. Wasn't really a dub that you can really brag about. 28-13 against one of the bottom two teams in the league, in my opinion. But I mean, as I said, the Bucs have a really good chance of making the playoffs, and I think this week against the Chargers, even if they take the loss, they're still heavily favored, in my opinion, because I don't think that Atlanta will continue to win out after this week. Because again, Tampa Bay's schedule is easier than Atlanta's, and I think that's the reason why Tampa Bay's percentage to win here is a lot more. Sitting at number 10, I'm going to have the Washington Commanders. Yes, still in the top 10 even after their bye week. They did move down, just like a couple other teams who are on the bye week. But again, as I said earlier in this video, another rookie coming off the bye in week 14. Next week, they have the New Orleans Saints, who are sitting at 5-8. It is in NOLA, but I do think the Washington Commanders should win this one. They are heavily favored in the 12 o'clock slate. And I think it should be that. I'm going to bet against that spread for the Commanders, of course. They have a 91% chance of making playoffs. I really love to see this. Last week was 91. This week is 91. and 2% chance to only win the division. But of course, that's okay. They could possibly win it next year, but we'll see. They have to heavily improve to beat out the Eagles there. But right now, 91% chance is very good for a rookie-led team, and I'm rooting for them. I hope we don't match with them in the playoffs there at any point in time, because Commanders look pretty scary. But so far, good job, Commanders. The NFC East actually looks pretty decent, and thankfully, not any Cowboys fans can say that their team is one of the best there. Sitting at number 9, I have the Denver Broncos, another team at 8-5 there. They went ahead and had a bye week themselves, just like I said. A whole bunch of teams coming off the bye with rookie quarterbacks there. Their chances actually shot up on their bye week from 42% to 72% chance to make the playoffs. Pretty crazy that maybe 3 teams in this AFC West might actually make the playoffs all at the same time. So again, you don't really see that too often, so it would be pretty cool to see it. But next week, the Denver Broncos have the Indianapolis Colts. I think this is a game that they should win if the defense comes to play, as well as Bo Nix, that has been doing it pretty much day in and day out, week in, week out, month in, month out, whatever you want to say. But Denver is looking good. And of course, I hope that their chances stay up, because it'd be really cool to see the Broncos, the Chargers, and Chiefs, because of course we've seen the Chiefs falter against divisional rivals. So maybe that will be their way out of the playoffs this year. Sitting at number 8, I am going to have the Minnesota Vikings sitting at 11-2. Who would have thought that, besides the Minnesota Vikings fans? I mean, I for sure didn't. Reed didn't. I don't think AJ did, but we definitely did say that the Vikings would be a dark horse team this year. Uh, we didn't think that JJ McCarthy would have been all that, but we haven't really seen too much of him because of that injury. And that's okay, because, of course, Vikings are doing fine without him. They now have a 99% chance to make it to the playoffs versus last week, which is a 95% chance. 10% chance still to win the division there, but they definitely need the Lions to lose a few games. Going into next week, it's going to be a pretty tough matchup for them against the Bears. It's a divisional rivalry. They're always harder games, and we've seen Minnesota definitely play a little bit less to their skill level when they go against a divisional rival. So Minnesota, I think it's going to be a game you should win, but it won't be as easy as everybody thinks, especially those betting apps who say that Minnesota should win by at least 7 points. At this point in time, I just think Minnesota is a good team to go into the playoffs. I definitely wouldn't want to match up against them in the first week, but we'll see them next week as the Seahawks play them in Week 16. Sitting at number 7, just like last week, I have the Baltimore Ravens, who came off a bye week. Of course, their quarterback is not a rookie by any means, but it definitely was a needed bye week. This week might be another bye week, basically, as maybe Baltimore will pull their starters after the halftime show, because going against New York in this next week definitely isn't a hard game for them. It should be an easy win, but we've seen some crazy things happen for sure. Right now, their percentage of making the playoffs is 98%, going up 2% from last week at 96. 30% chance still to win the division, even though they are 2 games behind the Steelers. Could be interesting to see there. Maybe the Ravens make a comeback and the Steelers see some turmoil, but we'll have to wait and see there. I think the Ravens should make it to the playoffs for sure after this win this week, but we'll go ahead and check in next week. Sitting at number 6 here, I'm going to have the Green Bay Packers. They went ahead and took the L against the Detroit Lions. Almost a W for them, but at the last second, the Lions just pulled out their big old cojones and really put it to them, getting that last field goal to win against a divisional rival. So Packers are sitting at 9-4 this week. They're going to go ahead and go against the Seahawks. It's going to be a tough game, in my opinion, but I could be biased. I'm a Seahawks fan, so maybe it is going to be an easy one for them. But right now, they're only favored by 3, and their percentage of making the playoffs is 98%. Only 1 or less than 1% actually to win the division. So if you're a Packers fan and you felt like you might win the division this year, well, sorry to tell you, it is now swept under the rug for you. It's not something you should think about. you should just think about making sure that you make the playoffs and you're primed and ready to make a run for the Super Bowl, because you have a 6% chance of doing so, which is even higher than the Vikings at 5%. And they are 2 games ahead of you in their record. So look at that. Pretty crazy. But yeah, Packers are a great team. I am definitely going to be chewing down my fingernails watching this game because I hope we win. Sitting at number 5, I'm going to have the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's definitely going to be a really good time to see the Steelers back at the top of their division after a few rough years. But Steelers have always had a great defense, always had a great coach in Mike Tomlin. And it's kind of cool to see Russell Wilson leading this team up there, along with Justin Fields, who we have to give his roses to for holding it down in the beginning of the season. But sitting at 10-3, getting the dub against Cleveland, 27-14 this past week, it was a great one to see, in my opinion. This week, it should be another great one as the Steelers go against the Eagles, who are another monster team in the NFC. Right now, Philly sitting at 11-2, Pittsburgh sitting at 10-3. It should be one of those firework games. And I know these teams won't face up in the playoffs until maybe if they make the Super Bowl. But right now, the Steelers have a 3% chance of making the Super Bowl. And of course, a 70% chance to win the division. So should be a really good game. I'm looking forward to this one, and hopefully you are too. Now, looky, that team we just talked about against the Steelers, here they are sitting at number 4, the Philadelphia Eagles. I know they got the win against Carolina, but I have them moving down one spot here just because they should have won by more. Even though we knew the Carolina Panthers were going to play great, I still think the Eagles should be putting them away fairly easily. And they really didn't, as there was a no-biter at the end there. Of course, 100% chance to make playoffs, as they basically have already won their division. There's only a 98% chance that they do that. 2% chance that the Commanders do, so nothing really to be scared of there. But a 10% chance to make the Super Bowl, which is actually very exciting for you Eagles fans out there. But there is very little chance that they actually get the first round bye. Right now, sitting at 16%. I do think the NFC side will be the Lions, but you never know. Anything can happen, and of course, we've seen it go that way before. But this week, the Eagles will go against the Steelers. I think this is a matchup that you definitely want to watch. So hopefully you do. Sitting at number 3, I am going to have the Buffalo Bills, who took the L to the Rams this week. 42-44 was a gunslinging game, one of the best performances in fantasy we've ever seen. 51.3 points, I believe, for Josh Allen. That is the highest amount of points that anybody has ever scored there for fantasy, unless you're, scoring is totally different. But that's for regular leagues without changing too many things. The Bills look good, but this week they faltered. They still have a 100% chance of making the playoffs, as they already have outright won their division. I don't know why they have it at more than 99%, because it should be 100 because they've already locked it in. But their percentage of making the Super Bowl is very, very high, 19%. I feel like there is a way that they could get the first round bye, but definitely won't happen this week. It will probably have to be a few weeks. But I really am looking forward to this game here that's coming up. We got the Lions and the Bills. It should be a possible Super Bowl matchup in the making here in the regular season. Detroit sitting at 12-1, Buffalo Bills sitting at 10-3. Like I said, this really doesn't affect their chances to make the playoffs, but it is a possible Super Bowl matchup, so could be exciting. I definitely will be watching this game. 325. Sitting at number 2, looky, I have the Kansas City Chiefs moving back up after the Bills lost. They've earned it. Sitting at 12-1 this past week, they got the close win to the LA Chargers, so it kind of made me want to leave them at 3, but it's okay. Kansas City, you are a good team, so I will not say that you aren't. Going into this next week, you are going to place the Cleveland Browns. It could be a possibility that you guys get upset because every single team has been keeping it close. But again, we'll always see something that just pushes Kansas City Chiefs above every other team, and that's what good teams do. So at this point in time, as we all know, Chiefs are 100% chance of making the playoffs. There's no doubt about it. 73% chance to get the first round bye. as long as they don't lose too many games, and a actual 13% chance to make the Super Bowl. So not very high there for them, even though they're sitting at 12-1. But I mean, maybe we'll see them, maybe we won't. Like I said, a lot of close games, so I think they're taking that into factor that the Kansas City Chiefs have not put a whopping on too many teams. And last but not least, the number one team for me for like the past 7 weeks is going to be the Detroit Lions. They took the dub here 34-31 against Green Bay, as they should have, in my opinion. They are the better team in this division, and that's why they will win this. 100% chance to make the playoffs, only a 90% chance to win the division, a 77% chance to win the first round bye, like I think they should, and the highest percentage to make the Super Bowl at 21%. It's just what the Lions do this year. They take kneecaps and they don't look back. So the Detroit Lions will face the Buffalo Bills this week. Buffalo is probably going to be one of their toughest matchups if you take out any of the divisional games against the Vikings and the Packers. But this is very well a Super Bowl, like I said earlier. Buffalo Bills sitting at a total of 19% chance to make the Super Bowl, and the Detroit Lions sitting at 21. Should be a really good matchup. I wish this was the night game, but I won't complain that the Seahawks and Packers are in the night game. But definitely this game has a lot of potential here to really be one of the greatest games of all time. Possibly. We'll see. Two high-powered offenses, two defenses that are really struggling to keep the other side in tame. So I'm definitely going to be watching this one on a full screen somewhere while I watch some other games too. But I think this is definitely one of the best games that could happen this year. So hopefully you watch it. Hopefully you like this video, and hopefully you like where your team fell in these rankings. Again, hopefully your team has a chance to make the playoffs, and hopefully in fantasy you are going to win your matchup and move on into the next round. But that will be my video for this week. Hope you liked it. Again, leave a comment down below if you think I'm wrong, or if you don't think that, I'm good at this. Of course, I always want your input on how you think this video is. Do you think I can improve somewhere? Let me know down in the comments, and leave a like while you do that. Other than that, guys, again, should be some really good games this week, as I've said, and hopefully your team wins. So other than that, guys, I hope you have a great weekend. Hope you like the game tonight as well. And as we always say, keep on grinding.